Hello, 8th grade science students. It is Mrs. Mandrich, and I have been having so much fun seeing the assignments you guys have submitted in scientific method and just spending these first few weeks of school talking about how do scientists perform experiments, and that's by following the scientific method. So far we've looked at what are IV, DV, all of that, and we even did a gizmo, right? We did an online lab. But I think to really know the scientific method, you have to try an experiment. So we're going to do this. Even though we're online, we're going to do an experiment at home. If you have the materials, that's awesome. I would love for you to actually do the lab. If you don't, you can watch our full video. Mr. Gallant, my student teacher, and I made a video doing the lab, and you can get your data from that. But what a better way to do scientific method than to do a lab. So this lab is called the Balloon Rocket Lab. Don't get too excited. It's just a balloon on a straw going down a string. But it works the same way that a rocket does because we release the air out the back, which is our rocket fuel, and it propels the rocket forward. So to do the lab, first of all, you need to, I'm in the folder for Wednesday right now of the week of September 21st, 14th, week of September 14th, and I'm going to watch Mrs. M do the balloon rocket lab. So there's a link here, but there's also a link inside the assignment. So I'm going to click here, Balloon Rocket Lab, Google Slide Write Up. So you are actually writing up the lab like IV, DV, a data table, a conclusion, but you're doing it broken down into Google Slides. So here's the assignment. It says, please watch Mrs. M and Mr. Gallant, our student teacher, go through the lab on YouTube, and then you have two options, okay? If you can get a balloon, a straw, and a string, then you're going to do the lab as described in the video. If you can't get the supplies, then you're just going to watch the entire video and use our data for your data table. So let's take a look at the Google Slides, okay? It says, scientific method, fill in the box lab write-up. Okay, slides 2 and 3 are your instructions, and then you will need to complete slides 4 through 8 for a grade. So it's called Balloon Rockets. I'm on slide 2, and here's my statement of problem. It says, what is the effect of the amount of air in a balloon on how fast it will travel the distance of a string? So here's the materials I'll need, and here's my procedure. Like I said, if you're going to do the lab, you can use that as your guide. But also on slide 3, we made a video of myself and our student teacher actually going through the lab. So notice it says everyone needs to watch the first 5 minutes of the lab so you can see how to set it up. But then if you have the materials, you can stop the video, do it yourself, record your own data. If you don't have the materials, though, watch the whole video and get our times, our data, so that you can go and do yours. Okay, your actual assignment where you're going to start filling in blanks starts on slide 4. So here I am on slide 4. It says we need to identify the IV and DV and come up with controlled variables and a control group. So my IV, what factor am I going to change to see if it has an effect on the DV? Well, here's a little hint. See how this box is yellow? If I go back up here in my statement of problem, I have amount of air in yellow. So all of the boxes starting on slide 4 are clickable. So if you notice, I clicked on the box, it gave me a blue border, and I can type in it. So my independent variable is the amount of air. Okay, so I'm just going to fill that right there in the box. My dependent variable that I'm going to measure as a result, I'm just going to give you guys this one so you can see another example of writing in the box. Dependent variable is the time, okay, the time it takes for the balloon to travel the distance of the string, and that's going to be measured in seconds. Okay, you can also type for control group, and right here for controlled variables, you can fill in 3 things that need to be the same. If you watch the video, I go through lots of controlled variables, so you'll have that information, okay, the video on slide 3. You will need to come up with a title for the lab. Notice that I put that the title is IV versus DV. You will rewrite the problem, which is on the previous slide, and you'll come up with a hypothesis, okay? So if I put more in the air in the balloon, then the balloon will travel farther because the balloon rocket has more fuel to go the distance, or the more air I put in, the greater the force. That might be what happens. You have to do the lab to find out. I really quickly want to go through the other slides. Slide 6 is a data table. So you're going to do 2 trials with each amount of air. So if you watch my video, I do trial 1 and trial 2 with 5 breaths. Okay, so for trial 1 at 5 breaths, it might take 5 seconds, and at trial 2, it might take 3 seconds, okay? But you're going to do 2 trials with each amount of breath, and then you're gonna get your data and put it here, okay? Again, if you don't have materials, just watch the video, get our data, and put it right here. Okay, lastly, we're gonna do analysis and conclusion. So we wanna know if our data supported our hypothesis, and if there really is a relationship between the amount of air that I blow in a balloon and how fast it's going to travel. So right here, again, you can click on the box and you can type in it. So did your data support your hypothesis? We are in 8th grade, so I want complete sentences. And I'm going to say something like, yes, my data supported my hypothesis, blah, blah, blah. And then I'd like you to use data, like actual numbers from your lab, to tell me how it did or did not support your hypothesis. So for example, yes, when there were 15 breaths in the balloon, then the balloon did go the fastest because its time was only 2 seconds or whatever it was. So please use data to support your answer. And lastly, on slide 8, the last slide, let me get out of the way here. Okay. The last slide asks you for a follow-up experiment. So describe a similar follow-up experiment you could do to learn more about what you learned in this lab. So I don't want you to tell me about some random experiment that has nothing to do with balloons or air or string. What I do want you to do is pick one of your controlled variables and describe how you could do an experiment where you change that variable. So for example, instead of looking at the amount of air in the balloon, maybe I could look at the type of balloon, and I could use like those long skinny balloon animal balloons. I could use a regular balloon, and I could use a huge balloon, and I could see if the type of balloon has an effect. So that's what a follow-up experiment is. I hope that you enjoy doing this lab. I hope that it's not too stressful, and you have all of Wednesday, all of Thursday, and the weekend if you need it as homework to turn this lab in. These Google Slides are due Monday. Okay, have a great time with the Balloon Rocket Lab.